The rain came down in sheets across Manhattan that November evening, turning the streets of Little Italy into rivers of reflected neon and amber streetlights. Inside La Stella d'Oro, the city's most exclusive Italian restaurant, the weather seemed like a distant memory. Warm golden light spilled from crystal chandeliers, casting a soft glow over white tablecloths and gleaming silverware. The air was thick with the aroma of fresh basil, slow-cooked marinara sauce, and expensive wine. Emma Rodriguez moved between the tables with practiced efficiency, her black server's apron tied neatly around her slim waist. At 24 years old, she had the kind of tired beauty that came from too many sleepless nights and too few moments of peace. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tight bun, a few rebellious curls escaping to frame her face. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, but she smiled warmly at each customer, her professional mask firmly in place. This was her second shift of the day. She'd worked the lunch rush at a diner in Brooklyn, rushed home to feed and hold her 8-month-old daughter Sophia for exactly 47 minutes, then caught the subway to Manhattan for the evening shift. Her feet ached in the required black heels and her arms still felt the phantom weight of her baby. But Emma couldn't afford to think about that now. The tips at La Stella d'Oro were too good to pass up, and the rent on her tiny Brooklyn apartment was due in 5 days. Table 7 needs more bread, Carlos, the head waiter, whispered as he passed her in the narrow corridor between the kitchen and dining room. He was a middle-aged man from the Dominican Republic, one of the few people at the restaurant who treated Emma like a human being, rather than just another struggling single mother desperate for work. "Got it," Emma replied, grabbing a basket of warm focaccia from the kitchen window. As she approached table 7, she noticed the couple there, clearly on a first date, judging by their nervous laughter and the way they kept reaching for their wine glasses. The woman wore a designer dress that probably cost more than Emma made in a month. The man had that polished Wall Street look, perfect hair, expensive watch, rehearsed charm. "Your bread," Emma said softly, placing the basket on the table. "Can I get you anything else?" "Actually," the man said, barely glancing at her, "this wine is corked. Bring us the 2015 Barolo instead." Emma knew for a fact the wine wasn't corked. She'd opened it herself 20 minutes ago, but she simply nodded. "Of course, sir. Right away." This was the dance. The wealthy customers who filled La Stella d'Oro every night rarely saw the servers as real people. Emma had learned to make herself invisible, to anticipate needs before they were spoken, to smile through casual rudeness and forgotten thank yous. It was survival. The restaurant was nearly full that Tuesday evening. Despite the rain, Manhattan's elite always found their way to La Stella d'Oro. There were business executives celebrating closed deals, older couples marking anniversaries, and groups of women in designer clothes sharing bottles of wine that cost more than Emma's weekly groceries. The low murmur of conversation mixed with the soft classical music playing through hidden speakers. Emma had just returned to the kitchen to get the new wine when she heard it, a shift in the restaurant's atmosphere so subtle that most people wouldn't have noticed. But Emma had developed a sixth sense for danger during her 3 months working here. The conversation didn't stop exactly, but it changed. Voices lowered. Laughter became more careful. She peered through the small window in the kitchen door and felt her stomach tighten. Vincent Calabrese had just walked in. Even if Emma hadn't heard the whispered stories from the other servers, she would have known immediately that this man was dangerous. He moved through the restaurant entrance with the kind of confidence that came from never having to fear anything or anyone. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with broad shoulders that filled out his impeccably tailored charcoal suit. His dark hair was swept back from a face that might have been handsome if it weren't so hard, all sharp angles and cold calculation. He looked to be in his mid-30s, and there was something in his eyes, a darkness, a weariness, that made Emma think of locked doors and buried secrets. 2 men flanked him, clearly bodyguards despite their expensive suits. One was massive, with a shaved head and hands like sledgehammers. The other was leaner, with quick eyes that scanned the restaurant constantly, cataloging exits and potential threats. But it was what Vincent Calabrese carried that made Emma's breath catch in her throat. A baby. The child couldn't have been more than 6 months old, wrapped in a blue blanket and held somewhat awkwardly in Vincent's arms. Even from a distance, Emma could see the tension in the man's jaw, the way he held the baby like it was a fragile explosive he didn't quite know how to defuse. Antonio Russo, the restaurant owner, materialized from somewhere in the back, his round face flushed with a mixture of fear and forced hospitality. Emma had never seen Antonio move so quickly. He practically ran to the entrance, his hands already gesturing toward the best table in the house, a large booth in the back corner with a view of the entire restaurant, and more importantly, easy access to the rear exit. "Mr. Calabresi," Antonio said, his Italian accent thicker than usual with nervousness. "What an honor. Please, please, your usual table is ready." Vincent didn't smile. He simply nodded once and allowed Antonio to lead him through the restaurant. Every person they passed found something fascinating about their plates. Eyes dropped. Conversation stuttered and resumed in quieter tones. Emma watched a businessman at table 4 literally turn pale when Vincent walked by. The stories about Vincent Calabresi varied depending on who was telling them, but the core facts remained consistent. He was the head of one of New York's most powerful crime families. His territory stretched from the docks of Brooklyn to legitimate businesses in Manhattan. People who crossed him disappeared. People who worked for him got rich, or ended up in the East River. He was untouchable, protected by layers of lawyers, corrupt officials, and the kind of fear that made witnesses forget how to speak. But none of the stories had mentioned a baby. Emma retreated to the kitchen as Vincent and his guards settled into the corner booth. Her hands shook slightly as she uncorked the Barolo for table 7. Through the window, she could see Antonio personally attending to Vincent's table, his normally commanding presence reduced to nervous servility. "Did you see?" Maria, one of the other waitresses, whispered urgently. She was a young woman from Ecuador, barely 20, with wide eyes that held too much knowledge of the world's cruelty. "Vincent Calabresi is here. With a baby." "I saw," Emma murmured, trying to focus on pouring wine without spilling it. "They say his wife died," Carlos added quietly, appearing beside them. His face was grave. "Childbirth complications. 6 months ago. He's been raising the boy alone. Or trying to. Word is, he's gone through 5 nannies already." "Why?" Maria asked. Carlos shrugged. "Some quit because they're afraid. Some he fires because they can't handle the baby. That child cries constantly, they say. Colicky. Won't take a bottle from strangers." Emma felt something twist in her chest. A familiar, painful recognition. She knew about crying babies. She knew about the exhaustion, the desperation, the feeling of being completely alone while holding a screaming infant at 3 in the morning. She knew about the judgment from strangers who assumed you were doing something wrong, that you weren't trying hard enough, that you should somehow make your child stop crying through sheer force of will. "Emma, you're on section 3 tonight," Carlos said. "That's his area." Her eyes widened. "What? No. Can't someone else?" "Antonio specifically requested you," Carlos interrupted. "He said you're the most professional server we have, the one least likely to stare or gossip or do something stupid." Emma wanted to protest, to explain that she had enough problems without adding a Mafia boss to her list, but she knew it was pointless. She needed this job, needed the tips, needed to keep her head down and her daughter fed. "Okay," she whispered. She delivered the wine to table 7, checked on her other tables, and then, inevitably, had to approach the corner booth. Vincent Calabresi sat in the center of the curved booth, the baby in a carrier beside him. The bodyguards flanked the table at a respectful distance, close enough to intervene but far enough to give their boss privacy. The restaurant had placed a white privacy screen partially around the booth, both a courtesy and a statement. Everyone in La Stella d'Oro knew who sat back there. Everyone knew not to look too closely. Emma took a deep breath, smoothed her apron, and approached with a water pitcher and menus. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Welcome to La Stella d'Oro. Can I start you with something to drink?" Vincent looked up at her, and for a moment Emma forgot to breathe. His eyes were dark brown, almost black, and they held a depth of exhaustion she recognized too well. This was a man who hadn't slept properly in months. This was a man at the end of his rope, holding on only through sheer stubborn will. "Scotch," he said. His voice was rough, like gravel. "Neat. The Macallan 25. "Of course," Emma replied, setting down the water glasses. "And for—" She didn't finish the sentence because the baby started to cry. It began as a whimper, a soft sound of distress that might have been easy to soothe, but within seconds, it escalated into a full-throated wail that cut through the restaurant's carefully maintained atmosphere like a knife. The baby's tiny face scrunched up, turning red, and the cries came in desperate, gasping waves. Emma saw Vincent's jaw clench. His hands, which had been resting calmly on the table, curled into fists. He reached for the baby carrier, his movements oddly mechanical, and began to rock it gently. But his touch was too stiff, too uncertain. The baby only cried harder. Around the restaurant, the reaction was immediate and uncomfortable. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Silverware stopped clinking. Every eye in the room wanted to look, but no one dared. The tension was suffocating. A collective held breath, waiting to see what would happen when one of the city's most dangerous men couldn't control his own child. "It's fine," Vincent muttered, more to himself than to Emma. "He'll stop. He just needs—" But the baby didn't stop. If anything, the cries intensified, becoming more frantic, more desperate. Emma could hear the exhaustion in those cries, the hunger, the discomfort. She'd heard those exact sounds from Sophia countless times. Vincent pulled the baby from the carrier, holding him against his chest with arms that didn't quite know where to go. His expensive suit was already stained with spit up. His perfectly styled hair had come loose from being run through by frustrated fingers. In this moment, he didn't look like a feared mafia boss. He looked like what he was, a grieving widower completely overwhelmed by fatherhood. "Sir," Emma heard herself say before she could stop herself. "I could—" Vincent's eyes snapped to her, and for a second she saw anger there. But beneath it was something else, something vulnerable. "What?" he demanded. The baby screamed louder, his tiny fists waving in the air. Emma swallowed hard. Every instinct told her to back away, to mind her own business, to not get involved with this man and his problems. But she'd spent the last 8 months learning to listen to a different instinct, the one that came from being a mother. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "but I couldn't help noticing. I have a daughter. She's 8 months old. Sometimes when babies cry like this, they just need—" "You have a child?" Vincent interrupted. His eyes scanned her face as if seeing her for the first time. "Yes, sir." "And she cries like this?" "Sometimes," Emma admitted. "Most babies do. It's normal. It doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong." Something flickered across Vincent's face. Relief, maybe, or surprise, as if no one had ever told him that before. As if all 5 of his failed nannies had made him feel like his son's crying was somehow his fault. The baby's screams reached a new pitch. Several customers were now openly staring, unable to help themselves despite their fear. Antonio hovered nearby, wringing his hands, clearly torn between wanting to help his most dangerous customer and having absolutely no idea how to comfort an infant. Vincent stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his water glass. He paced a few steps with the baby, bouncing him awkwardly. Nothing worked. The cries continued, echoing off the restaurant's high ceilings, turning the elegant space into a showcase of his helplessness. Emma watched him, and despite everything, despite knowing who he was, what he did, the danger he represented, she felt her heart break a little. She knew this desperation. She'd lived it. The feeling of being completely alone, of failing the one person who needed you most, of crying yourself while your baby cried, both of you too exhausted to know what to do next. "Would you—" Vincent started, then stopped. His pride visibly warred with his desperation. "Would you like to try?" The question hung in the air between them. Emma's first instinct was to refuse, to politely decline and step back into her role as invisible server. Getting involved with Vincent Calabrese in any way was dangerous. Everyone in the restaurant could feel that truth in their bones, but the baby's cries pulled at something deep in her chest, that sound of pure need, of an infant who couldn't explain what was wrong, who just needed someone to understand, to help, to care. She thought of Sophia, probably crying right now in their apartment while Mrs. Chen from next door tried unsuccessfully to soothe her. Mrs. Chen was kind, but she was 70 years old and didn't have the strength to walk a fussy baby for hours. Emma thought of all the times she'd wished someone would just help her, would see her struggling and offer a hand without judgment. "If you'd like," Emma heard herself say, "I could hold him for a moment, just to see if a different person might help." Vincent stared at her for a long moment. The bodyguards shifted, clearly uncertain about this development. Around the restaurant, Emma could feel dozens of eyes on them, everyone trying to process this surreal scene. A waitress offering to help Vincent Calabrese with his crying baby. Finally, Vincent gave a short nod. "Okay." He stepped closer, and Emma got her first clear look at the baby. He was beautiful despite his distress. Dark wispy hair, chubby cheeks red from crying, eyes squeezed shut. He wore a blue outfit that was rumpled and slightly damp, probably from being held by stressed, sweaty hands all day. Vincent transferred the baby to Emma's arms with the careful uncertainty of someone handling nitroglycerin. The moment the infant settled against Emma's chest, she felt her body respond instinctively. Her arms curved around him naturally. Her hand supported his head without thinking. Her body began the gentle sway that every mother knows, the rhythm that exists somewhere between heartbeat and breath. "Hey there," Emma murmured softly. "Hey, sweet baby. It's okay. I know." The baby's cries stuttered for a moment, confused by the change. Emma shifted her hold slightly, tucking him closer to her warmth. She began to hum, not consciously choosing a melody, but letting whatever wanted to come flow out. It was a lullaby her grandmother had sung to her in Puerto Rico, before her family moved to New York, before life got complicated and hard. The humming turned into soft singing, the Spanish words coming back to her from childhood. "Duerme, duerme, negrito, que tu mama está en el campo, negrito." The baby's cries began to quiet. Not immediately. Nothing with infants was ever immediate. But gradually, his screams became whimpers, then soft hiccuping sounds, then finally, blessed silence. His tiny body relaxed against Emma's, his breathing evening out. One small fist grabbed onto her shirt and held tight. Emma looked up and found Vincent staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Shock, maybe, or disbelief. Around them, the restaurant had gone completely silent. Even the classical music seemed to have faded into the background. "How did you—" Vincent started, his rough voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes they just need to be held a certain way," Emma said softly, still swaying gently. "And sometimes they can sense when the person holding them is too stressed. Babies pick up on that." Vincent's jaw worked as if he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. His hands hung at his sides, empty for the first time in months. He looked lost. The baby made a small sound, not quite a cry, but a whimper of need. Emma felt the familiar rooting motion against her chest and realized what the problem was. "He's hungry," she said. "He can't be," Vincent replied immediately. "The nanny, before she quit this morning, she fed him 2 hours ago. He shouldn't be hungry yet." Emma bit back a sigh. This was such a common misconception. Babies this age sometimes eat every 2 hours, especially if they're growth spurting, and when they're upset, they often want to nurse more frequently for comfort. "I have bottles," Vincent said, gesturing to an expensive diaper bag on the booth seat. The nanny prepared them, but when he pulled out a bottle and tried to offer it to the baby, the infant turned his head away, refusing, beginning to whimper again. Emma recognized that response too. Some babies would only take a bottle from specific people, or in specific circumstances. When they were upset, many refused anything but the comfort of nursing. Emma felt her own body responding to the baby's distress, felt the familiar sensation of her milk letting down. She'd nursed Sophia before coming to work, but her body didn't follow a strict schedule. It responded to need. She looked at Vincent, at this dangerous man who somehow seemed more vulnerable than threatening in this moment, and made a decision that would change everything. "Mr. Calabrese," she said quietly, "I'm still nursing my daughter. If you'd allow it, I could feed him. It might help." The words hung in the air. Vincent's eyes widened slightly. Around them, Emma could feel the shock rippling through the restaurant. This wasn't just unusual. This was unprecedented, intimate, the kind of thing that didn't happen between strangers, especially not in a public place, and especially not between a waitress and a man like Vincent Calabrese. "You would do that?" Vincent asked, his voice strange. "Babies need to eat," Emma said simply, "and he's clearly hungry. I don't mind. I mean, if you're comfortable with it." Vincent looked at his son, at the baby's scrunched-up face and the whimpering sounds that threatened to become screams again. Emma could see the calculation happening behind his eyes, the weighing of options, the desperate need for a solution. "Okay," he said finally, "but not here, in public." "Of course," Emma agreed. She looked toward Antonio, who still hovered nearby, his face pale. "Is there a private room?" Yes, Antonio stammered. "The wine cellar office, in the back. I'll show you." But Vincent shook his head. "I'll take her." He turned to his bodyguards. "Marco, Tony, wait here. No one comes back there. Understood?" The bodyguards nodded, their faces carefully neutral, though Emma caught a flicker of something. Surprise, maybe respect, in the bigger one's eyes. Vincent gestured for Emma to follow him, and she did, carrying his son through the restaurant. Every eye followed them. The whispers would start the moment they left the room, Emma knew. The speculation, the rumors, the wild stories about what was happening. But in that moment, with a hungry baby in her arms, Emma found she didn't care. The walk to the back office felt like miles. Vincent moved ahead of her, his broad shoulders cutting a path through the narrow hallway behind the kitchen. Staff members pressed themselves against walls to let him pass. He pushed open a heavy wooden door at the end of the corridor, revealing a small cluttered office that smelled of wine and old paper. There was a worn leather couch against one wall. Vincent gestured to it. "Thank you," Emma said softly, settling onto the couch with the baby. Vincent stood awkwardly by the door, clearly uncertain whether to stay or go. The baby was already rooting against Emma's chest, his whimpers becoming more insistent. "You can stay if you want," Emma said. "He's your son." "But I need to." She gestured to her shirt. "I'll turn around," Vincent said quickly, and did so, facing the wall. Emma appreciated the gesture. She adjusted her shirt as modestly as possible and brought the baby to her breast. He latched immediately, his desperate suckling gradually evening out into a more peaceful rhythm. The relief was instant, both for the baby and for Emma's overfull breasts. In the quiet of the small office, with only the sound of the baby nursing and the muffled noise of the restaurant beyond the door, Emma finally let herself process what she'd just done. She'd basically told one of New York's most powerful crime bosses that she'd breastfeed his baby. She'd touched his child, taken him from his arms, and walked into a private room alone with a man who could make her disappear without a trace. But looking down at the peaceful infant in her arms, feeling his small body relax as his hunger was satisfied, Emma couldn't bring herself to regret it. "What's his name?" she asked softly. Vincent's shoulders tensed at the question. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then quietly, "Michael. Michael Anthony Calabresi. That's a beautiful name." Silence fell again. Emma could hear Vincent's breathing, could sense his tension even though he wasn't facing her. She wondered what he was thinking, what it cost a man like him to accept help, to show weakness, to trust a stranger with his child. "My wife chose it," Vincent said suddenly. He stopped, couldn't finish. "I'm sorry," Emma said, and meant it. "Carlos told me what happened. I can't imagine." "No," Vincent agreed. "You can't." But his tone wasn't harsh, just tired. So incredibly tired. Michael's suckling slowed, became more relaxed. Emma could feel him getting drowsy, the warm milk and comfort finally giving him what he needed. She looked at his perfect little face and felt tears prick her eyes. No baby should lose their mother. No father should have to navigate this alone. "Can I ask you something?" Vincent said, still facing the wall. "Of course. How do you do it? How do you keep going when you're alone with a baby and everything feels impossible?" The raw honesty in his question stunned her. This wasn't the feared Mafia boss speaking. This was just a man, a grieving, exhausted father who didn't know how to save his son from drowning in both their pain. Emma thought about her answer carefully. "I don't always keep going," she admitted. "Sometimes I cry in the bathroom while Sophia screams. Sometimes I sit on the floor at 3 in the morning and wonder how I'm going to make it through another day. But then she smiles at me or she falls asleep in my arms and I remember why I have to try. And if there's no one to help, no family, then you find moments of grace wherever you can," Emma said. "Like tonight. Michael needed help. I could give it. That's enough." Vincent turned around then, and Emma saw that his eyes were red. He wasn't crying. Men like him probably hadn't cried since childhood. But he was close. He looked at his son, peacefully nursing in a stranger's arms, and something in his hard face softened. "Thank you," he said, and the words sounded like they cost him everything. "You're welcome," Emma replied. Michael had fallen asleep, his tiny mouth slack, a drop of milk on his lips. Emma carefully detached him and adjusted her shirt, then stood slowly, cradling the sleeping baby. "Here," she said, offering Michael back to his father. Vincent took him with more confidence than before, his arms curving naturally around his son. He looked down at the peaceful infant and something like wonder crossed his face. "He never sleeps," Vincent murmured. "Not like this. Not for months." "He will now," Emma assured him. "He was just hungry and overtired. He'll probably sleep for a few hours." Vincent looked up at her, and in that moment Emma saw him clearly. Not a criminal, not a feared boss, just a man who loved his son and didn't know how to save him. "I need to get back to work," Emma said quietly. "But if you need anything else tonight—" "Wait," Vincent said. "What's your name?" "Emma. Emma Rodriguez." "Emma Rodriguez," he repeated, as if memorizing it. "How much do you make here? In tips?" The question caught her off guard. That's not why I know," Vincent interrupted, "but answer anyway." Emma hesitated. On a good night? Maybe $200. Vincent pulled out his wallet with his free hand, careful not to disturb the sleeping Michael. He extracted a stack of $100 bills. Emma counted at least 20, and held them out to her. I can't accept that, Emma said immediately. You fed my son, Vincent stated. You gave him something I couldn't. That's worth more than money. He's a baby who needed help. That's not a transaction. Vincent's expression shifted, something like respect flickering in those dark eyes. You're not like most people. I'm exactly like most people, Emma corrected. I'm just a mother who saw another mother's baby in need. But I'm not a mother, Vincent said quietly. I'm just a man who doesn't know what he's doing. That's every parent, Emma told him. We're all just figuring it out as we go. Vincent looked at her for a long moment, then put the money away. Then let me pay you differently. Come to work for me. Be Michael's nanny. Emma's heart stopped. What? You're good with him. He trusts you and you're… Vincent paused, searching for words. You're not afraid of me. Or you are. But you helped anyway. That takes courage. Mr. Calabresi, the nanny quit this morning. I'm desperate. Name your price. Emma thought of her Brooklyn apartment, the stack of overdue bills on her counter, Sophia crying in Mrs. Chen's arms, the double shifts that never seemed to be enough. She thought of stability, of being able to feed her daughter without counting pennies, of maybe, finally, having something like security. But she also thought of who this man was, what he did, the danger that came with being in his world. I need to think about it, Emma said. Vincent nodded slowly. Fair enough. But Emma? Yes? Thank you. For tonight. For seeing Michael as just a baby who needed help. Not as the son of… He stopped, seemed to reconsider. Just thank you. You're welcome, Emma said again. She left the office on shaking legs and returned to the restaurant floor. The whispers started immediately. Eyes followed her. Questions hung in the air, unasked but obvious. Emma ignored them all. She returned to her tables, took orders, delivered food, smiled her professional smile. But her mind was miles away, replaying the last 30 minutes over and over. When she finally looked toward the corner booth, Vincent was gone. His bodyguards had cleared out. Only Antonio remained, holding an envelope with her name on it. From Mr. Calabresi, Antonio said, his voice strange. And Emma? Whatever you did back there, it was the right thing. Inside the envelope was $5,000 in cash and a business card with a phone number. On the back, written in surprisingly elegant handwriting, were 3 words. When you're ready. Emma's hands shook as she tucked the envelope into her apron. She had no idea if she'd call that number. She had no idea what the right choice was. All she knew was that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't begin to understand. Outside, the rain continued to fall on Manhattan, washing the streets clean, while inside La Stella d'Oro, a young waitress finished her shift and tried to pretend that nothing extraordinary had happened. But everyone in that restaurant knew better. The question now was, what would happen next? Emma didn't sleep that night. She lay in her narrow bed in the studio apartment in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, staring at the water-stained ceiling while Sophia slept peacefully in her crib 3 feet away. The envelope from Vincent Calabresi sat on her nightstand, its presence somehow larger than its physical dimensions. $5,000. More money than Emma had seen in one place since before Sophia was born. More money than 3 months of rent, groceries, diapers, and formula combined. The business card lay next to it, that phone number written in black ink seeming to glow in the darkness. Outside, the sounds of Brooklyn filtered through the thin walls. Sirens in the distance, someone arguing in Spanish 2 floors up. The rumble of the B train passing on the elevated tracks a block away. This was Emma's world. Cramped, loud, uncertain, but hers. Safe in its familiarity, if nothing else. She'd been 22 when she met Derek. He'd seemed charming at first, full of promises about the future they'd build together. But charm had dissolved into criticism, criticism into control, and control into something darker. When Emma discovered she was pregnant, Derek's mask had slipped completely. The man she thought she knew disappeared, replaced by someone cold and cruel who told her she'd be raising the baby alone. He'd left before Sophia was even born, leaving Emma with medical bills, an apartment she could barely afford, and a determination to never, ever depend on a man again. So why was she even considering Vincent Calabresi's offer? Emma rolled onto her side, watching Sophia's chest rise and fall in the soft glow of the nightlight. Her daughter was beautiful. Perfect dark curls, golden brown skin, tiny fingers that grabbed onto Emma's pinky with surprising strength. Sophia deserved better than this apartment, better than a mother who worked herself to exhaustion and still couldn't make ends meet, better than wearing secondhand clothes and eating the cheapest formula because the good stuff was too expensive. But did Sophia deserve a mother who worked for a man like Vincent Calabrese? Emma's phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Carlos. "Girl, the whole restaurant is talking about what happened tonight. Are you okay?" She typed back, "I'm fine, just tired." 3 dots appeared. Then, "Be careful. Men like that, they're dangerous even when they're being nice, especially then." Emma knew Carlos was right. She'd grown up in New York, heard the stories, understood how the world worked. Vincent Calabrese wasn't offering her a job out of kindness. He was desperate, and desperate men made deals that served their interests first. But she'd also seen something else in that wine cellar office. She'd seen a father who loved his son, but didn't know how to show it. A man drowning in grief and responsibility, trying to hold it together while falling apart inside. She'd seen her own desperation reflected back at her. Another text from Carlos. "Whatever you decide, I got your back." Emma smiled despite herself. Carlos was one of the good ones. A father of 3 who understood what it meant to work 2 jobs to keep your family afloat. He'd covered for her more than once when she'd been late because Sophia was sick or Mrs. Chen couldn't babysit. "Thank you," she typed back. "That means everything." She put the phone down and reached for the envelope, pulling out the bills and counting them again. $5,000. She could pay off her credit card debt, fix the leak in the bathroom, buy Sophia new clothes that actually fit, maybe even save some for emergencies. Or she could use it as a cushion while she figured out what to do about Vincent's offer. Emma got up quietly, careful not to wake Sophia, and went to the small kitchen area. She made tea, the cheap kind from the bodega on the corner, not the fancy stuff the customers at La Stella d'Oro drank, and sat at the wobbly table where she paid her bills and ate her meals. The business card seemed to stare at her. What would it mean to work for Vincent Calabrese? She'd be taking care of Michael, presumably in Vincent's home. She'd be entering a world she knew nothing about, surrounded by danger and people who lived by rules she didn't understand. She'd be taking Sophia into that environment, but she'd also be getting paid enough to finally breathe, to stop choosing between electricity and groceries, to maybe, possibly, start building something like a stable life for her daughter. Emma pulled out her laptop, a 6-year-old model that took forever to boot up, and started researching. She typed Vincent Calabrese, New York into the search bar and spent the next hour reading everything she could find. The articles painted a picture she expected: federal investigations that went nowhere, suspected involvement in construction rackets and dock operations, connections to old money crime families, a reputation for being smart enough to stay out of prison. There were photos of him at charity galas, standing next to politicians and business leaders, always in expensive suits, always with that same hard expression. But there were also older articles, from 6 months ago, about his wife Maria. She'd been 28, a teacher from Staten Island, daughter of a legitimate businessman. The articles described her death in childbirth as a tragedy, mentioned Vincent's devastation, speculated about how it would affect his operations. None of them mentioned what it must have been like for him to become a single father in the midst of losing his wife. Emma found herself looking at a photo from their wedding, Vincent in a tuxedo, Maria in white, both of them younger and smiling. He looked different there, less hardened, almost happy. Maria was beautiful, with long dark hair and a bright smile that reached her eyes. What would Maria want for her son? Would she want Michael raised by a succession of frightened nannies who quit after a few weeks? Or would she want someone who actually cared, who saw Michael as a baby who needed love, not just an obligation? Emma closed the laptop and looked at the clock. 3:47 a.m. In 2 hours, Sophia would wake up for her morning feeding. In 5 hours, Emma was scheduled for the breakfast shift at the diner. In 8 hours, she'd need to be at La Stella d'Oro for the dinner prep. She couldn't keep living like this. Something had to change. Emma picked up the business card, turned it over in her fingers, and made her decision. At 9 o'clock the next morning, after feeding Sophia and getting her settled with Mrs. Chen, Emma stood outside a phone booth, one of the few remaining in Brooklyn, and dialed the number on Vincent's card. She didn't want to use her cell phone. Didn't want there to be a direct connection, a record. She knew that was probably paranoid, but caution felt appropriate. The phone rang twice before a woman answered. Calabrese residence. Emma's throat went dry. Hi. My name is Emma Rodriguez. I need to speak with Mr. Calabrese. One moment, please. There was a click, then silence, then another click, and then Vincent's voice. Emma. He sounded surprised. Maybe he hadn't expected her to call. Mr. Calabrese, I've been thinking about your offer. And? Emma took a deep breath. I have conditions. There was a pause. Go on. I need to bring my daughter with me. I can't afford separate childcare, and I won't leave her with strangers all day. If I'm taking care of Michael, Sophia comes too. That's acceptable. I need a contract. A real one, written up by a lawyer, with my salary, hours, and responsibilities clearly defined. I need to know exactly what I'm agreeing to. That can be arranged. Vincent's tone was businesslike now, professional. What else? I need you to understand that I won't be involved in any other aspect of your life. I'm there to take care of Michael. Nothing else. I don't want to know about your business. I don't want to be part of anything illegal. I'm just a nanny. The pause was longer this time. You're setting boundaries. Yes. Most people don't do that with me. I'm not most people, Emma said, echoing his words from the night before. She heard what might have been a soft laugh. No, you're not. Okay, Emma Rodriguez. I agree to your conditions. Can you come to my home today? We'll discuss the details, you can see where you'd be working, and if you still want the job after that, we'll move forward. Where do you live? Sands Point, Long Island. I'll send a car for you. What's your address? Emma hesitated, then gave him the cross streets near her apartment. She still wasn't ready to give him her exact location. The car will be there in an hour. Bring your daughter. Mr. Calabrese. Vincent, he interrupted. If you're going to work for me, call me Vincent. Vincent, Emma amended, the name feeling strange on her tongue. Thank you for understanding about my conditions. Thank you for calling, he replied. I wasn't sure you would. He hung up before she could respond. Emma stood in the phone booth for a long moment, processing what she'd just done. Then she ran back to her apartment, her heart pounding. Mrs. Chen was rocking Sophia when Emma burst through the door, slightly out of breath. Mrs. Chen, I'm so sorry, but I need to take Sophia for the day. Something came up. The elderly woman handed over the baby with a knowing smile. Good opportunity? Maybe, Emma said. I hope so. She packed Sophia's diaper bag with practiced efficiency. Diapers, wipes, change of clothes, bottles, her favorite stuffed rabbit. Then she changed into the nicest outfit she owned. A simple navy dress that she usually wore to job interviews, paired with the least scuffed of her 3 pairs of shoes. She pulled her hair back into a neat bun, applied minimal makeup, and looked at herself in the bathroom mirror. She looked tired, scared, but also determined. We're going on an adventure, mija, Emma whispered to Sophia, who gurgled happily in response. Mama's trying to make things better for us. Please be good today, okay? Sophia grabbed Emma's nose, which Emma chose to interpret as agreement. Exactly 1 hour after the phone call, a sleek black car pulled up to the corner Emma had specified. It wasn't a limousine, nothing that ostentatious, but it was clearly expensive. The driver was a middle-aged man in a suit who got out and opened the rear door without comment. Ms. Rodriguez? He asked politely. Yes, I'm Joseph. I'll be driving you to Mr. Calabrese's residence. The car seat for your daughter is already installed. Emma looked into the back seat and saw a high-end infant car seat, brand new, exactly the right size for Sophia. Vincent had thought of everything. The drive from Brooklyn to Long Island took about 45 minutes, through neighborhoods that got progressively wealthier. Emma watched the buildings change from her familiar tenements to brownstones to mansions, the streets becoming quieter and more tree-lined. Sophia dozed in her car seat, lulled by the smooth ride. Joseph didn't try to make conversation, for which Emma was grateful. She needed the time to think, to prepare herself for whatever came next. They turned onto a private road marked only by a discreet sign, private property. The car wound through trees for another quarter-mile before emerging into a clearing that made Emma's breath catch. Vincent Calabrese's home was enormous, a 3-story colonial mansion in white stone, with columns flanking the entrance and perfectly manicured grounds that seemed to stretch forever. There was a fountain in the circular driveway, a garden visible around one side, and what looked like a guest house in the distance. This wasn't just wealth. This was generational money, the kind that built empires and bought politicians. Emma felt her courage wavering. What was she doing here? She didn't belong in a place like this. But then Joseph opened her door, and Sophia woke up with a little cry, and Emma remembered why she'd come. She lifted her daughter from the car seat and followed Joseph to the front door. It opened before they reached it. Vincent stood in the doorway, wearing dark slacks and a white dress shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked different in daylight, less intimidating somehow, though no less imposing. His eyes went immediately to Sophia in Emma's arms. "This is your daughter?" "Yes, this is Sophia." Vincent's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "She's beautiful. Come in." The interior of the house was just as impressive as the exterior. Marble floors, high ceilings, artwork that Emma suspected was original and expensive, but it was also strangely cold, lacking the warmth of a home where a child lived. Everything was too perfect, too pristine. "Michael is with one of my mother's friends," Vincent explained as he led her through the foyer into a large sitting room. "She's watching him for a few hours while we talk. Please, sit." Emma settled onto a cream-colored sofa that probably cost more than her entire apartment, holding Sophia protectively in her lap. Vincent sat across from her in an armchair, his posture formal, businesslike. "Can I get you something? Coffee? Water?" "Water would be nice, thank you." Vincent nodded to someone Emma hadn't noticed, a woman in her 50s who'd been standing quietly by the doorway. She disappeared and returned moments later with a bottle of water and a glass. "This is Margaret," Vincent said. "She manages the household staff." "Margaret, this is Emma Rodriguez. If she accepts the position, she'll be Michael's nanny." Margaret smiled warmly. "It's nice to meet you, dear. And who's this little one?" "My daughter, Sophia." "She's precious," Margaret said genuinely. "We'll make sure both of you are comfortable here." Emma felt some of her tension ease. Margaret seemed kind, normal, a welcome anchor in this overwhelming situation. After Margaret left, Vincent leaned forward, his forearms resting on his knees. "I want to be direct with you, Emma. I need help with my son. I'm not good at this, at being a father on my own. I've tried 5 nannies in 6 months and none of them worked out. Some were afraid of me. Some couldn't handle Michael's crying. Some I had to let go because they were more interested in gossip and drama than actually caring for my son." "And you think I'll be different?" Emma asked. "I think you already proved you're different," Vincent replied. "Last night you saw a baby who needed help and you helped him. You didn't see an opportunity or a threat. You saw Michael. That's what he needs. Someone who sees him as a child, not as a symbol or a complication." Emma looked down at Sophia, who was playing with her fingers. "I understand that, but I need you to understand something too. I'm a single mother. I've been on my own since before Sophia was born. I know what it's like to feel desperate, to not know if you're doing anything right, to be so tired you can barely stand. But I also know that children need consistency. They need routine and safety and love. If I take this job, I need to know that you're committed to giving Michael those things." Vincent's jaw tightened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I can help you be a better father, but I can't be a substitute parent. Michael needs you. He needs his dad to be present, to be involved, to show up even when it's hard. I can take care of him during the day, but you need to be there for bedtime, for morning feedings, for the moments that matter. Otherwise, what's the point?" The room fell silent. Emma watched emotions flicker across Vincent's face. Surprise, defensiveness, and finally, something that looked like shame. "You're right," he said quietly. "I've been hiding, throwing money and nannies at the problem because I didn't know what else to do. Because every time I look at Michael, I see Maria and He stopped, his voice catching. "I couldn't save her. I couldn't do anything but watch her slip away. And now I have this son who needs me, and I'm terrified I'll fail him too." Emma's heart twisted. This was the truth beneath everything. Not a mob boss's arrogance, but a grieving husband's fear. "You won't fail him," Emma said gently. "Not if you try. And it's okay to be scared. Every parent is scared sometimes, but Michael needs you to be scared and show up anyway." Vincent looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "How did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise," Emma replied. "I'm just a mother who's had to figure things out alone. I know what it costs to be present even when you're breaking inside. But I also know that children are worth it." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of shared understanding settling between them. "Let me show you the rest of the house," Vincent said finally. "The nursery, where you'd work. Then you can meet Michael again and decide if you want to do this." Emma stood, adjusting Sophia on her hip, and followed Vincent through the mansion. He showed her the kitchen, a massive space with professional-grade appliances and enough counter space to feed an army. The staff quarters, where she could have her own room if she wanted, or she could commute from Brooklyn. A playroom that was already set up but looked unused. filled with expensive toys still in their packaging. And then, the nursery. It was on the second floor at the end of a quiet hallway. Vincent opened the door and Emma stepped into a room that was both beautiful and heartbreaking. The walls were painted a soft blue, decorated with hand-painted clouds and stars. There was a crib made of dark wood, a changing table, a rocking chair by the window. Shelves held books and stuffed animals, everything a baby could need. But it was also sterile, impersonal, like a showroom, rather than a space where a child actually lived. "Maria designed this room," Vincent said from the doorway. His voice was thick. "She spent hours planning every detail. She wanted Michael to feel safe here, loved. But I don't know if he does." Emma walked to the window and looked out over the grounds. She could see gardens, a section of the Long Island Sound in the distance, trees swaying in the autumn breeze. "He will," Emma said. "Once there's someone here who fills this room with warmth and care. Once it stops being a beautiful space and becomes a home." She turned to find Vincent watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "50,000, he said abruptly. "What? Your salary? $50,000 a year plus health insurance for you and Sophia, plus room and board if you choose to live here, plus use of a car. Those are my terms." Emma's mind reeled. $50,000? That was more than twice what she made from both her jobs combined. That was security. That was a future. "That's too much," she heard herself say. Vincent shook his head. "It's what you're worth, what Michael's safety and happiness are worth." "And Emma?" He stepped into the nursery, his presence filling the space. "I meant what I said yesterday. You're not like most people. You set boundaries. You speak truth. You see people, really see them, not just what they can do for you. That's rare, that's valuable, and that's exactly what my son needs." Emma looked down at Sophia, then at the nursery, then back at Vincent. This was the moment, the decision that would change everything. She thought about her cramped apartment, the bills she couldn't pay, the future she couldn't provide. She thought about Sophia growing up with nothing, struggling the way Emma had struggled. She thought about Michael, a baby who'd lost his mother and desperately needed someone to show him he was loved. And she thought about the risk, the danger of entering this world, the fear of what it might cost her. But when she looked at Vincent, she didn't see a criminal. She saw a father trying desperately to save his son from drowning in both their grief. She saw herself reflected back. "I'll need that contract," Emma said. "Everything in writing, clear terms. I'll have my lawyer draw it up today. You can have your own lawyer review it before you sign." "I don't have a lawyer. I'll pay for one. This needs to be legitimate, Emma. You need to feel safe." Emma nodded slowly. "Okay, then yes, I'll do it." Vincent's entire body seemed to relax, as if he'd been holding his breath. "Thank you. You don't know what this means. When do you want me to start? Is Monday too soon?" That gave her 3 days to quit her jobs, arrange her life, prepare Sophia. It wasn't much time, but then again, when had Emma ever had the luxury of time? "Monday works. Do you want to live here? We have plenty of space, and it would make mornings easier." Emma hesitated. Living here would mean total immersion in this world, no separation between work and home. But it would also mean Sophia would grow up in safety and comfort, with space to play and clean air to breathe. "Can I think about it? Maybe start by commuting and see how it goes?" "Of course, whatever makes you comfortable." Vincent pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. "I'm having Margaret prepare some lunch. You should eat before you go back. And I'd like you to spend some time with Michael this afternoon if you're willing. See if what happened last night was a fluke or if you really do have a gift with him." "I don't have a gift," Emma said. "I just understand babies." "That's the same thing." They went downstairs and Margaret had indeed prepared lunch. Sandwiches, fruit, soup that smelled incredible. Emma fed Sophia while eating, acutely aware that this might be her future, eating in this enormous kitchen, surrounded by this wealth, caring for a child who wasn't hers, but who needed her anyway. Halfway through the meal, the front door opened, and Emma heard voices. A moment later, an older woman entered the kitchen carrying Michael. She was in her 60s, well-dressed, with sharp eyes that immediately assessed Emma. "Vincent," she said. "Who is this?" "Mama, this is Emma Rodriguez." "Emma, my mother." "Lucia Calabresi." Lucia's eyes narrowed. "The waitress?" "The new nanny," Vincent corrected, his tone carrying a warning. Lucia looked between them, clearly suspicious, but she handed Michael to Vincent without comment. The baby immediately began to fuss, his little face scrunching up in preparation for crying. "He's been difficult all morning," Lucia said. Wouldn't take his bottle, wouldn't sleep. I swear this child is cursed with— He's not cursed, Mama, Vincent interrupted tiredly. He's 6 months old and grieving his mother. Babies don't grieve. Yes, they do, Emma said before she could stop herself. Lucia turned to her, eyebrows raised. Excuse me? Emma felt her face flush but didn't back down. Babies absolutely grieve. They feel the absence of their primary caregiver. They sense stress and sadness in the adults around them. Michael lost his mother. Of course he's struggling. The kitchen fell silent. Lucia stared at Emma with an expression somewhere between offense and surprise. Vincent looked like he was trying not to smile. Margaret had very conveniently found something to organize on the far counter. Michael's fussing escalated into crying. Vincent began the awkward bouncing Emma had witnessed before, his body tense, his face showing his frustration. May I? Emma asked quietly. Vincent handed Michael over immediately, as if he'd been waiting for her to ask. The moment Michael settled into Emma's arms, his crying began to ease. She swayed gently, humming the same lullaby from the night before, and within minutes, the baby had quieted completely. He looked up at Emma with wide, curious eyes, one tiny fist gripping her finger. Hello again, sweetheart, Emma murmured. Remember me? Michael made a soft cooing sound, and something in Emma's chest expanded. This baby, this little boy who'd lost so much, he deserved everything. She looked up to find the entire room staring at her. Lucia's face had gone from suspicious to astonished. Margaret was smiling. Vincent looked like he might actually cry. How did you do that? Lucia demanded. I've been trying to calm him for 2 hours. I just held him the way he wanted to be held, Emma said simply. Sometimes babies need to feel secure before they can relax. Lucia stepped closer, studying Emma with new intensity. You have a child of your own? Yes, Sophia, she's 8 months old. And the father? Mama, Vincent said sharply. But Emma met Lucia's eyes directly. Not in the picture, by his choice. Something shifted in Lucia's expression. Not quite approval, but a degree of respect. Raising a child alone is hard. Yes, it is. But you're managing. I'm trying. Lucia looked at Vincent. You should hire her. I already have. Good. Lucia turned back to Emma. My son needs help. Real help, not someone who's just here for a paycheck. Can you be that person? Emma looked down at Michael, who was starting to fall asleep in her arms, his breathing evening out. His little body finally relaxed. I can try, she said honestly. I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I can promise I'll care about Michael like he deserves to be cared about. Lucia nodded once, decisively. That's enough. Vincent, I'm leaving. Emma welcomed to the family, and just like that she was gone, sweeping out of the kitchen with the same energy she'd brought in. Vincent let out a long breath. Sorry about her, she's protective. She loves you, Emma said. And Michael, that's good. She also just interrogated you like a witness. I've survived worse interrogations. Vincent smiled. A real smile, the first Emma had seen from him. It transformed his face, made him look younger, less burdened. I believe you. They spent the rest of the afternoon in the nursery. Emma held Michael while Vincent watched, asking questions about feeding schedules and sleep routines and developmental milestones. He pulled out a notebook and actually took notes, his brow furrowed in concentration. You're taking this seriously, Emma observed. You told me to show up, Vincent replied. This is me showing up. Emma felt a surge of respect for this man who was trying so hard to be better than his circumstances. As the sun began to set, painting the nursery in golden light, Michael fell into a deep sleep. Emma laid him gently in the crib, covering him with a soft blue blanket. Sophia was asleep too, having spent the afternoon playing on a blanket Emma had spread on the nursery floor. Vincent stood beside her, looking down at his son with an expression of wonder and pain. He looks like Maria when he sleeps, Vincent said quietly. Same long eyelashes, same little mouth. That must be hard, Emma said. It is, but it's also beautiful. He's all I have left of her. He's more than that, Emma corrected gently. He's himself. He's Michael. He'll have pieces of both of you, but ultimately, he'll be his own person. That's the gift. Vincent turned to her. How do you know these things? I don't know anything, Emma admitted. I'm just trying to figure it out like everyone else. But I do know that children aren't meant to carry our grief. They're meant to carry hope. Hope, Vincent repeated like the word was foreign to him. Yes, hope for something better, something new. They stood there in the quiet nursery as the sun set outside, two parents trying to give their children better lives than they'd had. trying to be enough even when they felt like they were failing. Monday, Vincent said finally. You'll come Monday? I'll be here. Vincent walked her to the car where Joseph was waiting to drive her and Sophia back to Brooklyn. Before Emma got in, Vincent hesitated, then spoke. Emma, thank you for seeing past who I'm supposed to be and seeing who I'm trying to become. Emma looked at this powerful, dangerous, broken man who was doing his best to be a good father, and she felt something shift inside her. Not romance, this wasn't that kind of story, but recognition, connection, the understanding that sometimes people surprise you. You're welcome, Vincent. See you Monday. The drive back to Brooklyn felt longer than the drive out. Emma held Sophia and watched the city lights appear as they left the suburbs behind. She thought about what she'd just agreed to, the life she was stepping into, the risk she was taking. But she also thought about Michael's peaceful sleep, Vincent's genuine gratitude, and the chance to finally provide real stability for Sophia. When they reached her corner and Emma climbed the 3 flights to her apartment, she was exhausted but more hopeful than she'd been in months. She had 3 days to prepare for her new life, 3 days to quit her jobs, pack what she needed, and ready herself for whatever came next. As she laid Sophia in her crib and sat down at her wobbly kitchen table, Emma looked at the business card one more time, then tucked it away in a drawer. Monday. Her life would change on Monday. And for the first time in a very long time, Emma went to bed feeling like maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. Monday morning arrived with the kind of gray autumn rain that made Brooklyn look even more tired than usual. Emma stood in her apartment at 5:30 in the morning, surrounded by packed bags and second thoughts. She'd spent the weekend in a whirlwind of activity, giving notice at both her jobs. Her manager at the diner had been understanding. The owner of La Stella d'Oro had seemed almost relieved, packing clothes and essentials for herself and Sophia, and lying awake at night wondering if she was making a terrible mistake. Carlos had taken her out for coffee on Sunday afternoon, his weathered face creased with concern. You sure about this, mija? He'd asked, stirring sugar into his café con leche. Once you're in that world, it's hard to get out. I'm not in that world, Emma had insisted. I'm just taking care of a baby whose father is Vincent Calabresi. Carlos had leaned forward, his voice low. I've lived in this city my whole life. I know how things work. Men like that, they seem charming when they want something from you. But there's always a price. He's paying me $50,000 a year, Carlos, with health insurance. That's not a favor. That's a legitimate job. Is it? Carlos had searched her face. Or is it something else? Emma had looked down at her coffee, unable to answer, because the truth was, she didn't know. All she knew was that Michael needed help. Sophia needed security, and this was the only path she could see forward. Now standing in her apartment with Sophia babbling happily in her playpen, Emma checked her phone. Joseph would arrive in 15 minutes to drive them to Long Island. This was it, the point of no return. Emma picked up Sophia and held her close, breathing in that sweet baby smell that always calmed her nerves. We're going to be okay, mija, she whispered. Mama's going to make sure of it. Sophia grabbed a handful of Emma's hair and pulled, which Emma chose to interpret as encouragement. The drive to Sands Point felt different this time. Emma wasn't just visiting, she was arriving, starting a job that would reshape her entire life. She watched Brooklyn give way to Queens to Nassau County, the buildings getting smaller and the spaces between them larger. Joseph, as always, drove in professional silence, but when they pulled up to the mansion's circular driveway, he turned to look at her with kind eyes. Ms. Rodriguez, if I may offer some advice. Please, Emma said. Mr. Calabresi is a complicated man, but he's also a good father trying to be better. Judge him by how he treats his son, not by what you've heard about how he runs his business. And don't let anyone, including him, make you feel like you're less than you are. You belong here, as much as anyone. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you, Joseph. You're welcome. Now let me help you with those bags. Margaret met them at the door, her warm smile a welcome sight. She'd clearly been watching for their arrival. Emma, dear, welcome. And this must be Sophia. She reached out to gently touch the baby's hand. What a sweetheart. Come, let me show you to your room. Vincent thought you might want to stay here during the week at least to make mornings easier. I hadn't decided about that yet. Emma started. Oh, I know, dear. But he had a room prepared just in case. You can always commute if you prefer, but at least you'll have the option. Margaret led Emma through the mansion to a wing she hadn't seen before. She opened a door to reveal a beautiful suite, A bedroom with a queen-sized bed, a sitting area with a couch and television, a private bathroom with a deep tub, and, most importantly, a smaller adjoining room that had been converted into a perfect nursery for Sophia. There was a crib identical to Michael's, a changing table, shelves stocked with diapers and supplies, even a rocking chair positioned by the window overlooking the gardens. Vincent had this all done over the weekend, Margaret explained. He wanted Sophia to be comfortable too. Emma walked through the rooms in a daze. The suite was bigger than her entire Brooklyn apartment. The bathroom alone was the size of her kitchen. Everything was clean, new, beautiful. "This is too much," Emma murmured. "Nonsense," Margaret said firmly. "You're caring for his son. That's worth everything to him. Now, Michael is in the nursery with Vincent. They're both waiting for you." Emma found them on the second floor. Vincent was sitting in the rocking chair holding Michael awkwardly while trying to give him a bottle. The baby was fussing, turning his head away, refusing to eat. Vincent's hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled. Clearly he'd been at this for a while. "Good morning," Emma said softly from the doorway. Vincent looked up and the relief on his face was palpable. "Emma, thank God. He won't eat. I've been trying for 45 minutes. Emma set Sophia down on the playmat in the corner and approached carefully. "May I?" Vincent handed Michael over immediately. Emma settled into the rocking chair and examined the bottle. Formula mixed too thick, the nipple flow too slow for a hungry baby. "The formula needs more water," Emma explained gently. "And this nipple is for newborns. Michael needs a medium flow at his age. Do you have different ones?" I don't know. The last nanny just left everything when she quit." Emma stood, still holding Michael. "Come on, let's go to the kitchen and fix this together." Vincent followed her downstairs, and Emma walked him through proper formula preparation, the right ratio of powder to water, how to test the temperature, which nipples to use at different ages. Vincent listened intently, taking mental notes, asking questions. "How do you know all this?" he asked. "Trial and error," Emma replied honestly, "and a lot of late-night internet research when Sophia wouldn't eat. Every baby is different, but there are some basics that apply to most." She handed him the newly prepared bottle. "You try. He needs to get used to taking bottles from you." Vincent took the bottle nervously. Emma guided his arm into the right position, showed him how to angle it to prevent air bubbles, how to hold Michael so he felt secure. This time, Michael latched on and began to drink. Vincent's face lit up with wonder. He's eating, Emma confirmed. "See? You can do this. Only because you showed me how. That's what I'm here for. To help you learn, not to do everything for you." They stood together in the kitchen, the morning sun streaming through the windows while Michael contentedly finished his bottle. When he was done, Emma showed Vincent how to burp him properly, how to recognize the signs that he was full versus just taking a break. "There's so much I don't know," Vincent said quietly. "Maria knew all of this instinctively. She read every baby book, took every class. I thought I'd have time to learn from her, but then..." He stopped, unable to finish. "You're learning now," Emma said gently. "That's what matters." The rest of that first day established a rhythm. Emma took primary care of Michael, but she constantly involved Vincent, explaining what she was doing and why. She showed him how to change diapers efficiently, how to give a bath without terrifying the baby, how to read Michael's different cries to understand what he needed. Vincent absorbed everything like a man dying of thirst. He took actual notes in a leather-bound notebook, asked questions without ego, admitted when he didn't understand something. Emma realized that beneath the hardened exterior was someone who genuinely wanted to be a good father. He just had no idea how. Around noon, they were in the nursery when Vincent's phone rang. He glanced at the screen and his expression hardened. "I need to take this. Business." "Go ahead," Emma said. "Michael and I will be fine." Vincent stepped into the hallway, and even through the closed door, Emma could hear his voice change, becoming colder, more authoritative. This was the other Vincent, the one the city feared. She focused on Michael, refusing to think about what that phone call might be about. When Vincent returned 10 minutes later, he looked tired. "I have to go out this afternoon, a meeting I can't avoid." "Okay," Emma said simply. Vincent hesitated. "You'll be all right here? Margaret is around if you need anything, and Joseph is available if you want to go anywhere. We'll be fine. Go handle your business." He looked at her for a long moment. "You're not going to ask what the meeting is about? You told me once that you respected boundaries." "I meant what I said," I'm here to take care of Michael, not to get involved in other aspects of your life. Something flickered across Vincent's face. Surprise, maybe respect. Most people are either too afraid to ask or too curious not to. I'm not most people, Emma reminded him. Vincent smiled slightly. No, you're not. After he left, Emma spent the afternoon getting to know the house and establishing routines. She fed Michael, put him down for a nap, then fed Sophia and let both babies sleep while she explored. The mansion was enormous, but oddly impersonal. Beautiful artwork hung on the walls. Expensive furniture filled the rooms, but there were no family photos, no personal touches. It was like a showroom pretending to be a home. Margaret found Emma in the library, staring at the floor-to-ceiling shelves filled with leather-bound books. It's overwhelming at first, Margaret said kindly, but you'll get used to it. Does it ever feel like a home? Emma asked. Margaret sighed. It did when Maria was alive. She brought warmth to this place. After she died, Vincent shut down. He threw himself into work, hired people to maintain the house, but he stopped living in it. He just existed here. That's so sad. It is. But maybe now, with you and Michael here, things will change. Margaret smiled. I've worked for this family for 15 years. I've never seen Vincent as engaged as he was this morning, learning how to feed his son. That's because of you. Emma shook her head. That's because of Michael. He just needed a reason to try. Sometimes we all need that, Margaret agreed. That evening, Vincent returned just before dinner. He came straight to the nursery where Emma was playing with both babies on the floor. How was he? Vincent asked immediately. Perfect. He napped for 2 hours, ate well, had a good diaper change routine. He's a sweet baby, Vincent, really. Vincent sat on the floor beside them, expensive suit and all, and reached out tentatively to Michael. The baby grabbed his father's finger and held on tight. I want to do his bedtime routine, Vincent said. Can you teach me? So Emma walked him through it. The bath, the lotion, the pajamas, the final bottle, the lullaby. She let Vincent do everything while she supervised, only stepping in when he got frustrated or uncertain. When Michael finally fell asleep in his crib, Vincent stood looking down at his son with an expression of pure love mixed with sorrow. Maria should be here for this, he whispered. She should be the one teaching me, doing this with me. I know, Emma said softly, and I'm sorry she's not. But Vincent, she would want you to keep trying. She would want Michael to have a father who shows up, who learns, who loves him enough to do the hard things. Vincent's eyes were wet when he turned to face her. How do you know what she would want? Because that's what any mother would want, for her child to be loved even in her absence. They stood in the quiet nursery, the night settling in outside the windows, and Emma saw Vincent's armor crack just a little more. Thank you, he said hoarsely, for today, for all of this. You're welcome. Emma excused herself to put Sophia to bed in their suite, and by the time both babies were asleep, she was exhausted. But it was a good exhaustion, the kind that came from meaningful work rather than desperate survival. She was getting ready for bed when her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Vincent. I wanted to make sure you had my personal cell in case you need anything during the night. And Emma? Today was good. Really good. Thank you for not giving up on us. Emma stared at the message for a long time before responding. You're welcome. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll work on tummy time. She could almost hear his confusion in his response. What's tummy time? I'll explain tomorrow. Good night, Vincent. Good night, Emma. The days turned into a week and the week into 2. A routine emerged. Emma arrived early, or simply walked downstairs if she'd stayed over, which was becoming more frequent, prepared both babies for the day, involved Vincent in morning feedings and diaper changes before his business obligations took him away. Afternoons were spent with the babies, walks through the gardens when weather permitted, playtime on the nursery floor, establishing nap schedules that actually worked. Vincent came home every evening for Michael's bedtime routine, without fail. Even if he had meetings, even if he was tired, he showed up. Emma would hear his car in the driveway around 7 o'clock, and within minutes, he'd be in the nursery, ready to learn whatever new skill Emma had planned for that day. Today we're working on reading cues, Emma announced one evening. Reading cues? Vincent repeated, holding Michael against his shoulder. Yes, babies communicate all the time, but not with words. You need to learn Michael's specific signals. Watch. See how he's turning his head against your shoulder and making those little grunting sounds? Yes. That means he's getting tired but fighting it. If you start the bedtime routine now, he'll go down easily. If you wait until he's overtired, it'll be much harder. Vincent studied his son's face intently. I never noticed that before. That's because you were too stressed to notice. Now that you're calmer, you can actually see him. Emma watched Vincent process this, saw the moment he understood that his own emotional state affected his ability to parent. It was a breakthrough, one of many they'd had over the past 2 weeks. But not everything was smooth. There were difficult moments too. One afternoon, Emma was in the kitchen preparing bottles when she overheard Vincent on the phone in his study. The door was slightly ajar, and his voice carried. I don't care what he says, tell him if he doesn't comply there will be consequences. Real consequences. No, I'll handle it myself if I have to. Just get it done. The coldness in his voice made Emma's blood run cold. This was the other Vincent, the one she tried not to think about. The one whose business involved threats and violence and things she didn't want to know about. She quickly finished with the bottles and retreated to the nursery, her hands shaking slightly. That evening, when Vincent came for bedtime routine, Emma found herself watching him differently. Those same hands that gently cradled Michael, what did they do in his other life? That same voice that sang lullabies. What threats did it make? Vincent noticed her distance. Is something wrong? No, Emma said too quickly. Everything's fine. But he wasn't fooled. Emma, talk to me. She hesitated, then decided honesty was better. I overheard your phone call this afternoon, the one about consequences. Vincent's expression shuddered. I see. I don't want to know the details, Emma continued. I meant what I said. I'm not part of that side of your life. But Vincent, I need you to understand something. Whatever you do in your business, whatever choices you make out there, they can't come into this nursery. Michael needs his father to be present. Not distracted by violence or threats or whatever else. You think I don't know that? Vincent's voice was tight. You think I want my son anywhere near my business? Then keep it separate. Completely separate. Because I won't expose Sophia to danger. If this job ever puts her at risk, I'm gone. They stared at each other, the tension thick between them. Finally, Vincent nodded. You're right. And I promise you, my business and my family are separate. Always have been. The meeting I had, the phone call you heard, it was about legitimate construction contracts, not anything illegal. But I understand why it sounded threatening. That's the language of my world, even when the dealings are legal. Are they? Legal? Vincent met her eyes directly. My construction company is completely legitimate. I have contracts with the city, with developers. Everything above board. But yes, Emma, I have other interests that aren't legal. I won't lie to you about that. But those interests never come home. This house, Michael, they're protected. Sacred. Emma wanted to believe him. Needed to believe him because the alternative was walking away from this job, this security, this chance to help Michael. Okay, she said finally. But if that ever changes, if I ever feel like Sophia is in danger, you leave immediately, and I'll make sure you're taken care of. Vincent interrupted. That's a promise. They finished the bedtime routine in silence, but it was a thoughtful silence rather than an angry one. Emma realized they'd just crossed another threshold, acknowledging the complicated reality of their situation while choosing to move forward anyway. Later that night, unable to sleep, Emma found herself in the library. She was curled up in an armchair, reading one of the parenting books from the shelf when Vincent appeared in the doorway. Can't sleep either, he asked. Sophia had a bottle an hour ago. My brain won't turn off. Vincent came in and sat in the chair across from her. He looked tired, vulnerable in a way he rarely showed. Can I tell you about Maria? He asked suddenly. Emma closed her book. If you want to. I met her at a charity event. She was there with her father. He owned a restaurant supply business, completely legitimate. She had no idea who I was, what I did. She just saw this guy in a suit who made her laugh. Vincent's expression softened with the memory. She was so full of life, so good. I didn't deserve her, but somehow she chose me anyway. And she knew what you did? Eventually? Yes, I told her after we'd been dating for 3 months. I thought she'd run. Instead, she said she saw who I was trying to become, not just who I'd been. She believed I could be better. And were you? Better? Vincent was quiet for a long moment. I tried. She made me want to be legitimate, to leave the family business. I started the construction company for her, started building something legal, but it's not easy to walk away from that world. People have expectations, obligations. Is that why you're still involved? Partially, but also because I'm good at it, because it's what I know, Because leaving completely would create a power vacuum that could endanger everyone I care about. He looked at her directly. I know that's not a good answer, it's not noble or admirable, but it's honest. Emma appreciated the honesty, even as it complicated her feelings. What would Maria want you to do? She'd want me out completely. She'd want Michael raised in a normal home away from all of this. Vincent gestured around the mansion. She'd want him to have what we couldn't have. A father who came home at 5 o'clock, who coached Little League, who never had to look over his shoulder. You could give him that, Emma said quietly. It wouldn't be easy, but you could choose to step away. Could I? Vincent's laugh was bitter. You don't just leave my family, Emma. It's not like quitting a regular job. But you're the boss. Doesn't that give you power to make changes? It gives me the power to get killed trying. The blunt honesty of that statement hung in the air between them. I'm sorry, Emma said. I didn't mean to judge. I don't understand your world. No, you're right to push. Maria would have said the same thing. She always believed I could be more than this. Vincent ran a hand through his hair. Maybe I still can. Maybe having Michael, having you here reminding me what matters. Maybe it's not too late. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The library dark except for a single lamp. The rest of the mansion quiet around them. Can I ask you something? Vincent said eventually. Sure. Sophia's father. Do you ever regret that he's not in the picture? Emma considered the question carefully. I regret that Sophia doesn't have a father who wants to know her. I regret that she'll grow up with questions I can't fully answer. But do I regret that Derek specifically isn't in our lives? No. He was cruel, controlling. He made me feel small. Sophia deserves better than that. And honestly, so do I. What was he like? Before he showed his true colors? Charming, attentive. He said all the right things. But looking back, I can see the red flags I ignored. The way he needed to know where I was all the time. How he'd get angry if I spent time with friends. Small controlling behaviors that escalated once I got pregnant. Did he hurt you? Vincent's voice was dangerously quiet. Not physically, but emotionally? Yes. He made me feel like I was crazy for wanting basic respect. Like I was asking too much by expecting him to be a partner. Emma looked down at her hands. When I told him I was pregnant, he said it was my problem to deal with. Just walked away like Sophia didn't matter at all. He's a coward. He's a lot of things. But he's also Sophia's biological father, and someday she'll ask about him. I'm trying to figure out what to tell her that's honest but not bitter. You'll know when the time comes, Vincent said. You seem to have good instincts about these things. Emma smiled. I'm just making it up as I go along like everyone else. They talked until nearly midnight. About parenting fears, about loss, about trying to build better lives for their children despite their own brokenness. Emma learned that Vincent had lost his own father at 15, that he'd been forced into the family business before he was ready, that he'd never planned to become who he'd become. And Vincent learned about Emma's childhood in Puerto Rico, her family's move to New York when she was 10, her mother's death from cancer when Emma was 19, her estrangement from her father who'd remarried and started a new family. We're both orphans in a way, Vincent observed. I suppose we are. Maybe that's why we understand each other. We both know what it's like to be alone. Emma nodded. And we both know what it's like to love someone so much you'd do anything to protect them. Vincent's eyes were intense in the lamplight. Michael is lucky to have you, Emma. Luckier than he knows. I'm lucky to have this job. This chance to give Sophia a better life. It's more than a job, Vincent said quietly. You've become part of our family, whether you intended to or not. The words settled over Emma like a warm blanket, comforting and slightly terrifying at the same time. 3 weeks into the job, Emma made her decision. She would live at the mansion during the week and return to her Brooklyn apartment on weekends. It was the compromise that felt right, giving Sophia stability and safety while maintaining some independence. The rhythm of their lives became predictable in the best way. Emma would wake early, feed Sophia, then join Vincent and Michael for breakfast. Vincent learned to prepare bottles, pack diaper bags, identify teething symptoms. He became confident in his parenting, less dependent on Emma's constant guidance, but he still wanted her input, her presence, her perspective. What do you think about introducing solid food? He asked one morning while they sat in the nursery. Michael's 6 months old, it's definitely time. We should start with simple purees, sweet potato maybe, or banana. Will you show me how? Of course. But Vincent, you're doing really well. You know that, right? He looked surprised. I'm fumbling through. All parents fumble, but you're showing up, learning, adapting. That's what matters. Vincent's expression softened. I couldn't do this without you. Yes, you could. Maybe not as smoothly, but you'd figure it out. You're stronger than you think. These moments of connection became more frequent. They'd find themselves talking long after both babies were asleep, sharing stories and fears and hopes. Emma learned about Vincent's love of architecture, his secret passion for cooking, his dream of maybe, someday, opening a legitimate restaurant. Vincent learned about Emma's abandoned dreams of becoming a teacher, her love of poetry, her fear that she'd never be enough for Sophia. You're more than enough, Vincent told her one evening. Sophia is lucky to have you. I hope so. I hope when she's older she understands why I made the choices I made, why I took this job. She'll understand. Because you did it for her. Because you're giving her opportunities you never had. Emma felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you for saying that. I mean it. Vincent hesitated, then continued. Emma, I need to tell you something. My lawyer finished drawing up your contract. It's ready for you to review. Oh, okay. But I added something. A provision that guarantees your salary for 2 years even if something happens to me. I've also set up a trust for Sophia's education, full college tuition, paid in advance. Emma's breath caught. Vincent, you can't. That's too much. It's not enough. You've given me my son back. You've taught me how to be a father. That's worth everything. I was just doing my job. No, Vincent said firmly. You were doing what you do best, seeing people who need help and helping them. Don't diminish that. Emma didn't know what to say. The enormity of Vincent's gesture overwhelmed her. Why? She finally managed. Why would you do this? Vincent looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Because you matter, Emma. You and Sophia both. You've become family, and I take care of my family. Family. The word echoed in Emma's mind long after she'd said goodnight and retreated to her suite. She wasn't Vincent's family. She was his employee. But somewhere over the past few weeks, the lines had blurred. She cared about Michael like he was her own. She cared about Vincent's growth as a father. She cared about this complicated, broken man who was trying so hard to be better. And that terrified her. Because caring meant being vulnerable. It meant opening herself up to potential hurt. It meant risking the stability she'd worked so hard to build. But as Emma checked on sleeping Sophia, as she thought about Michael peaceful in his nursery down the hall, as she remembered the look on Vincent's face when he'd talked about protecting his family, she realized it was too late. She already cared. She was already invested. She was already part of something larger than just a job. For better or worse, Emma Rodriguez had found a new family. Now she just had to figure out what that meant, and whether she was brave enough to accept it. 6 months passed like a dream Emma was afraid to wake from. Michael was now 1 year old, thriving under the care of 2 parents who loved him. Vincent had transformed, no longer the distant, grieving widower, but an engaged father who knew his son's favorite songs, could soothe his tears, and never missed bedtime. Emma watched from the garden as Vincent pushed Michael on the swing, both of them laughing. Sophia played nearby in the grass, her own giggles mixing with theirs. You did this, Margaret said, appearing beside Emma. You gave them back to each other. They did it themselves, Emma replied. I just showed them the way. That evening, Vincent found Emma in the library. I'm stepping back from the business, he announced. Legitimately, completely. It'll take time, but I'm done with that life. Emma's heart soared. Really, really. Because of you. Because you showed me what matters. They stood together, 2 broken people who'd found healing in helping each other. Thank you, Emma, for everything. Thank you for trusting me, she whispered. Outside, the Long Island sunset painted the sky gold. Inside, 2 families, now 1, began their new chapter together. Hope, love, home.